sex is such a tough topic for people to talk about, even with their intimate partner.
So true.
People are still embarrassed or sometimes have shame around talking about what they want or need. So it really challenged me a lot. Again, I have a background in this and it was still challenging for me because I'm getting reacquainted with this new body and expressing to my husband that like things are out of sorts down there. It doesn't feel right anymore. And so we came at it together, figuring out new approaches, how being a mom that was breastfeeding and feeling completely touched out. And my husband is his primary love language is physical touch.
Welcome back to Confidently Uncomfortable with Jago. We have another special guest this week, and I am so excited. I've already been brainstorming on everything that I'm going to be picking her brain about. But as you know, we've started this 8-week series. It's all about hot girl healing. And I am not a mom yet, but I want to learn from people who are already on that journey. And so not only do I have an amazing mom on here, but I have Brianna Carey, and she is a postpartum relationship and intimacy coach. She helps parents reconnect post-baby after having a baby. And I just think that that's so important and amazing. And not only is she helping them reclaim their intimacy, but she has also started a podcast with her husband, which is like goals, right? She's the host of the Intimacy Evolution podcast with her husband, Mark. And y'all have been together for 15 years?
16 now. Yeah.
Gosh, with 2 kids.
Yay.
So much knowledge that I want to learn from you. So I'm definitely going to be giving the floor to you. But thank you so much for being here, Brianna. Y'all welcome her. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you and just kind of see how this conversation unfolds today.
Awesome. So I first found you through a friend, our friend Hannah. And if y'all have listened to Hannah's episode all about intimacy and sex, and we are going to go with that too. But it's like, I learned more about you through her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, not only is she all of these amazing things, but you're also a mom. And that is the goal for me. I've had this like fear of losing myself post, having a baby and not feeling like I can show up the way that I am. And so you do such an amazing job of helping people tap into that and intimately connect with themselves as well as with their partner. But like, how did you get to this point? Because it's very like a specific, place where you got. I'm very curious about your journey. I'm probably going to be super nosy about your relationship. Hope that's cool. But that's really what I want to know is like, how did we get here? Where did we get started? Was it just a passion? Was it your personal journey or a combination of things?
Yeah. It was definitely a combination. It was a journey, an evolution, so to speak. So I have been a sexual health educator, a women's sexual health educator for over 15 years. I just love educating women about their bodies, about how to show up more confidently, how to express their desires, how to enjoy their pleasure, how to experience pleasure with their partners and communicate that. So that was what led me into this space somewhat. And then after my husband and I had our first baby in 2015, I realized that I'm laughing, but almost crying at the same time because this is just not talked about for new parents, especially moms, like how to heal after having a baby, how to get back to intimacy after baby. And we can dive into this a lot more. There was a lot that we learned and there's no information out there. And I said, this is unacceptable. We're going to create the information so other couples don't have to go through what we experienced. And so that's kind of in a nutshell. And I know we're going to dive in more. So
absolutely. Your education and background, I can just tell how you're speaking on it, that you're so passionate. And I love that. Was the connection you said after first baby, you said there was nothing out there. How did you figure it out then? Like, where did you go? What did you do? Did you stumble into it? And was this something where you were kind of leading the charge, or was Mark, your husband, also like, okay, yeah, we need to figure this out together? I'm super curious if it started off with you guys like both leading charge with this.
Yeah. So kind of both. Definitely me more so. Just so I'll give you like the quick history of my first birthing experience.
Yes, please.
I had a pretty typical pregnancy with my first. Everything was fine. Labor was fine. I literally walked into the doctor's office. I'm like, I think I might be in labor. And my midwife checked me and she's like, you're 9 centimeters. Let's go have this baby now. And I'm like, okay.
Yes.
And so everything was good. It was really quick. My son had his like fist next to his cheek as he was trying to come out. So that led to a second-degree labial tear,
Oof.
and I
Yes.
had like 3 stitches. It was pretty minor, but I mean, they're stitches. There
Yeah.
was a tear. There's, damage to the tissue. And other than that, everything was pretty fine. I breastfed, went to my 6-week follow-up appointment. My midwife did the exam and it's like, "Okay, everything looks great. You can resume all normal activities." And I'm using air
Uh,
quotes right now because I'm like, what the hell are normal activities at
what?
this point?
What is this normal?
I mean, I guess working out, but a lot of people, women, men especially, they hear that 6-week appointment. And when you get the all clear, that for some reason is now synonymous with you can get back to having sex.
Yep.
And no, that just means that the big gaping wound, the size of a dinner plate where the placenta was in your uterus, is now healed. So you're no longer at risk of infections.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My incisions had healed, but my tissue damage was not healed.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody told me about that. Nobody told me about pelvic floor therapy either. And that's a whole other soapbox that I can get on another time.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that being said, I got the all clear 6 weeks. I'm still sleep deprived and mentally, emotionally, all the things, trying to figure things out. So, my husband and I didn't even try to have sex until about 8 weeks after. Literally, I joke, just the tip. And I was like in excruciating pain.
Which
I'm like, get
pain?
away from me. This is terrible. And thankfully, because of our communication, because of my sexual health background, we used lubrication, we went slow, we knew all of the things to do. So we tried a couple more times. And then I was 4 months postpartum and I made an appointment with my midwife again. I was like, something's just not right. I went to her, she did my exam and she's like, no, everything's great. Just have a couple glasses of wine and to relax and use more lubrication. My jaw just dropped. I was like, this is your medical professional advice. What are we doing? And I did go home and lay in my bed and cry for a while. I felt broken. I was questioning my life at that point. I said, are we going to even be able to be intimate again? And so I let myself wallow in it a little bit and I was like, no, this is not right. And if I'm getting this advice, I know that thousands of other women are receiving very similar messages. Again, this was 2015. I feel like we're starting to see an emergence of more talk around this subject. But for me, there wasn't anything. And so I had to really lean into my background and I researched and was trying to figure out, one, what is causing my pain? The only thing that I came to the conclusion of was vaginismus. So that's the involuntary like muscle spasms of the vaginal muscles. And my theory is that my baby got stuck. I had a vaginal birth and my body remembers pain. Yes, it's a natural process, but there was still pain there and my body was trying to protect itself. So it was going literally in lockdown and didn't want anything to penetrate in there. And so I remember just learning a lot about what can help muscles relax, and that's vibration. And I sold vibrators for a living for a long time. So
Perfect.
I was like, all right. So I had to really slow things down and get reacquainted with myself, really creating safety with touch before even focusing on the pleasure aspect. That was a very long-winded answer to a question I don't remember exactly.
No, that was so powerful. And I've talked about this before with like feeling more comfortable and confident with yourself and in your skin. And a big part of it can be what you just said of like feeling that safety within yourself. 'Cause there is so much pressure and it's you care a lot about the relationship, your partner. And so sometimes if we hyper focus on that, but instead you were able to slow down and communicate and then focus on yourself. I think that that's just such a good lesson, even if you're not pregnant, just like for yourself to learn.
Yeah.
And so you went through this experience. You felt very alone, you said, right? Which I've talked to a lot of moms and they also feel alone. They feel like no one talks about this. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit one-on-one about just my experience. I'm just like, how is it that no one talks about this? It's so interesting. And I know that there are so many joys in pregnancy and joys in birth and all this beauty within that. But also, I think it's so important to understand the other side of things too. And so going through that experience, it sounds like you had to kind of figure it out for yourself.
Yeah.
And so did you get to a point where you were able to communicate this with your partner and then At what point did you start to be like, okay, we need to share this with the world? Like, this can't stop with me and you.
Yeah. So my husband's background, he's a licensed professional counselor. Our communication's pretty solid for the most part. And we still struggled a lot
Mhm.
because the relationship dynamics totally change when you add a baby into that. So we had to navigate that together, which meant that we sex is such a tough topic for people to talk about, even with their intimate partner.
So true.
People are still embarrassed or sometimes have shame around talking about what they want or need.
Mm.
So it really challenged me a lot. Again, I have a background in this and it was still challenging for me because I'm getting reacquainted with this new body and expressing to my husband that like things are out of sorts down there. It doesn't feel right anymore. Like,
Mhm.
and so we came at it together, figuring out new approaches, how being a mom that was breastfeeding and feeling completely touched out. And my husband is his primary love language is physical touch.
Same with
How
mine.
how can I receive his touch in a loving way rather than a grossed out way? And I don't know how else to say that because
Yeah.
that's literally how I felt some days. He would
Mhm.
come home and try to give me a hug and a kiss, hug and a kiss. And I would literally like brace myself and push back. And it took us a while to even figure that out because the term touched out wasn't even being used back then
Mm.
either. We had to just really start slow and realize because we're not finding this information out there, we knew that nobody else had this information either and wasn't talking about it. And it wasn't even until after our second baby, that it really started becoming more of a priority. I started talking to groups of women that I was
Mhm.
doing in home parties with about this stuff more and more. It wasn't until 2021 that I was like, I'm really leaning into this. Kept getting the calling, a postpartum relationship intimacy coach, like this needs to be a thing.
So needed.
And my husband is now starting to transition out of his practice, that his private practice he's had for 8 years, to step into the space with me to support the entire relationship, not just the moms, not just the dads, because the dads need so much more support too.
Yeah.
And that's not talked about. So
Mm-mm.
we're literally helping each person become stronger individually and in their partnership to create that interdependence.
That is just so powerful. I mean, the why behind what you guys are doing is that the passion is there and, your experience, the fact that you're like, I don't want someone else to have to go through this is so powerful. My question, so I think about this, obviously I haven't been through this with you said expressing these needs to your husband, communicating this with your partner. In my mind, I feel like that conversation around sex, again, just in general, not even a post baby, I think a lot of our ego can get in the way and shame can get in the way. So what helped you guys, especially as you all being such good communicators and understanding your needs or starting to, what helped you? Was it like certain conversations or things you talked through? Was it exercises? Was there a routine or consistency that helped you guys get into it? Maybe it's not one thing, but anything that kind of sticks out.
Yeah, there's a few things. So to navigate the whole like being ready to receive touch and affection from him, we realized that so at that point his office was 30 minutes away and he had 30 minutes to decompress coming home. I didn't I wanted to talk to him on the way home. I was like, "Talk to me. I've been with a baby all day. No adult interaction." And we realized he needed that drive and I could accept that because when he came home, we would talk, say hi,
Mm.
give him the rundown of where I'm at as far as if I'm cooking dinner or I haven't started dinner yet or what was going on with our son. He changed from work, changed his clothes physically, and stepped into like husband role, dad role. And when he did that, that allowed me time to go do something for myself. Whether I wanted to go take a bath and relax, I was very intentional about not doing chore stuff. I didn't do things that quote unquote needed to be done. I did stuff that felt good for me. I could go take a nap for an hour. I could go binge a Netflix episode or read or get in the car, go to the park, literally whatever I wanted to do for an hour, hour and a half before dinner. And that helped so much because then I came in back home or into the space refreshed. I
Yeah.
was resourced. I would then approach him when I was ready for that physical affection. I would lean in for a kiss or a hug. So that was one thing that kind of helped that aspect. Also, refiguring what our household dynamics looked like, what
Mhm.
responsibilities he was picking up. And he was very hands on. He was very involved. I'm very grateful. I hear lots of stories where sometimes there's not as much support. And
Mhm.
again, that's just communication because previous generations, from what we've learned, right? The mom did take up all the stuff, but we could go into that too.
A whole nother topic too, right?
Yeah. So I'm just very grateful he helps out around the house. He loves to cook. I don't. So a lot of times he did cook the meals. I bought the groceries. He cooked the meals. We would take turns cleaning up the kitchen, things like that. And then as far as intimately, and we have this thing that we created. It's called the 4-step guide to reconnect after baby.
There's a freebie download that we'll put in the link for you guys, by the way.
It's how can we connect? So it's a weekly check in. We check in together weekly to see where we're at, how we're feeling, maybe areas that we need a little bit more support in or whatever. And how can we connect intimately without it being sex, you know?
Mm.
And then communicating when we do want to have sex. So coming after having a baby, it doesn't sound sexy, but it really helps a relationship when you intentionally plan when to have sex.
Mm.
Because then moms, you get to mentally prepare for it. You can do whatever you need to do. You're not like taken aback, like, oh, you want to have sex right now? Like, I'm not even in the mood for that. You get to take control of that. And that really helped a lot for me mentally prepare. And then also the partner is getting their physical connection as well. And they can also look forward to that. And it's not a guessing game of when or if it's going to happen, because that's where I see a lot of the friction and disconnect happen in the relationship. One's always chasing, one's always running.
Yeah.
So those, I think, were a few things that kind of helped it
Oh my
come
gosh,
about.
that's so good. So, just to kind of recap what you said, like the time to unwind, and I've talked to a lot of moms, like you said, with them feeling overstimulated because you're
Mhm.
constantly, you're touched out. I love that there's a term for it now because I'm sure
Yeah.
it was hard to put to words and even explain to someone who's like, no, I just want to come home from work and like hold you and hold the baby. But
Yeah.
to explain that, I think is great. And I think it's also good that you said, because I think a lot of people deal with guilt, especially mamas. And so, like, when the baby's napping or when they're coming back from work, like you said, it's like, no, it's going to be a thing that's for me and not a
Mhm.
chore just because then maybe there's still something on my list to be done. And so that's really good. So taking away the guilt behind that, I think is really powerful. It sounds like you did a great job of that. Was that something that you had to communicate, or was your husband basically like, yeah, you definitely deserve that. You need that? Because I know some people struggle with the guilt. I used to feel this way when I was like, I work from home.
Mm.
So my husband would come home and I didn't want him to come home and me be like chilling on the couch. Even if I worked all day, got everything done, I didn't want that to be the case, right?
Yeah.
I had to communicate that. So I didn't know, is that something you were just able to talk through together and having those conversations? Is there any just advice you would give moms that are wanting to get their partner to be on board and be open to this, but maybe they're typically the one that's looking into these things like therapy or support or an intimacy coach or anything like that?
So I think my husband was the one that actually kind of came up with a suggestion for like I needed to do something for myself, because I think it may have come out like a little passive aggressive or resentful that like
Never.
you get time out of the house for yourself. And he's like, I'm working. I was like, but you don't, So that's kind of how it might have started. I don't fully recall, but
I love it.
and so just with his background, he's like, okay, what would help you to
Mm,
feel better in your body? How would you like to navigate this? And he doesn't do therapy on me because you don't do that, but he just makes me think more. He
mhm,
really challenges me to listen to myself, my intuition, and I don't want to say challenge, encourages. And I was like, I don't know what I enjoy. I don't know what hobby I would like to do. I don't know. Like tell me something to do. And so that was really good. That was like the start of it for us that it and now I just can really lean into it. I'm like, does this feel good to me right now? Like, no, it doesn't. What would I actually like to be doing?
Easily switch on a dime, like, that's
Yeah.
awesome. I kinda wanna get what you were saying. You said that now you're able to tap into that a little bit easier, which is, like, what feels good, and I do have a lot
Yeah.
of moms who come to me and they're like, "I don't even know what a hobby would be for me. I don't really
Yeah.
have anything outside of their family and prioritizing their children," and
Mhm.
that breaks my heart, and I think that's so hard. So if someone is trying to tap into expressing themselves maybe outside of just the label of a mom, what ways would you help them? Like, if you're like, here's ways to kind of play around with it, or ways that you personally tap into like expression and intimacy and connecting with yourself. And I love that when you talked about intimacy, y'all, we are always talking about more than just sex. Sex is a part of it, but not the whole picture. So I'd love to hear just like your go-to. Tell me all about what you do day in and day out, basically.
Yeah, yeah. So back to how does somebody start to figure out time for themselves? Get outside. That is going to be my number one advice is get out in nature, be outside, go for a walk. Maybe if there's a pretty park nearby or a body of water, if you can go walk by the beach or a lake, like water is very grounding and
Mm,
it's just beautiful to be in, just to be in nature. Take a blanket and sit and observe, listen, put on some music or a podcast, read a book. However, like there's a few different things. If you're auditory or if you're, want to read or if you just want to lay there,
mm,
you could journal. So that's where I would start, honestly, is just getting out in
great.
nature and moving your body.
And when it comes to intimacy, like, what are you able to do, or what really helped you? Maybe even in the beginning when you
Mhm.
like were still recovering postpartum, what were those things that you started to do that were helping you? You talked about slowing down and using the
Yes.
vibrator and all those different things. Is there anything else that
Yes.
helped you?
Yeah. So I'll dive into that a little bit more. Creating safety within your body. Again, logically you want to be physically intimate with your partner. However, your body remembers. So there's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score. Like it remembers where it goes, through trauma and stuff, but it remembers everything that happens to it physically. And so you have to reconnect those like nerve endings and neurons and redirect it back to pleasure. And so that's what I did. I had to break up the scar tissue from my tear, the vibrator with gentle massage. I would massage my vulva just to kind of awaken those nerve endings again, gently around the vaginal opening, use the vibrator because the vibration relaxes the muscles. So I would practice breathing while I was using the vibrator. And again, this is all platonic. It's not for pleasure. It's
Yeah,
literally just to
just
get.
literally for your muscles. Yes.
Yeah, so healing
Mhm.
myself. And then I would, invite my husband to just literally place his hand over my vulva while I would do some deep breathing. And, we might talk or just put on some nice meditation music. And now to like set the mood with things, we use like the LED light changing, like color
Yes.
changing light
Love
bulbs and things
it.
like set the
All the
scene. You know what
senses.
I mean? Yes.
Yes.
And so we started with that, and then he would kind of massage my vulva, and then
Mhm.
he would use the vibrator on me just to massage and relax the muscles. And also, before I was ready for penetration, we did a lot of mutual masturbation. So
Love
again,
that.
we're still connecting. We're there together. I get to go at my own pace. He gets to go at his own pace, but we're still there connecting together. And I think that was so powerful and something that is not talked about. And I know masturbation can bring up a lot for
Super
people.
taboo. Yeah.
But it's super healing too. It's almost a reclamation of your body and your pleasure.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, and then we just kind of eased into it. And it was literally like just the tip, stop, breathe, go a little bit deeper, stop, breathe. And so, again, taking the end result of an orgasm off the table, it was just to get the body and the brain back in sync together. And yeah, just kind of.
That's so beautifully said. Oh my gosh, you gave me chills when you said the reclamation of your body.
Mm.
Like that's huge. So I want to know, after becoming a mom, when it came to your desire to reclaim your body, did you have any, even just out in public? Like I'm like pretty open about my life in public, but I think mom shaming is pretty huge. And I'm not even in that realm yet, but like what you wear, what you dress, how you show up, your example for your children, all those things. Did you experience that? Did you personally experience it? Family, society, just any of those pressures that you were kind of
Mhm.
like, damn, that really hit me. And I know you had to work through that, or it's just was something that I feel like isn't talked about that you want to share. Get on your
Yeah.
pedestal. I'd
Yes.
love for you to.
Honestly, that part took me even longer. I had my sexual awakening, I would say at 35, so almost 2 years ago now, where I've really stepped into my confidence in my body and my sexuality and expressing that. And I even notice it now going to our neighborhood pool. I'll wear a bikini. I'm totally fine. My kids don't think anything of it,
No.
obviously. It's not a big deal unless you make it a big deal, but I do notice other moms that are more covered, and that's fine. I'm, again, not judging, but I'm just observing
Yeah.
and comparing, and I'm like, are they wearing that because that's what they're comfortable in and they enjoy it? Are they wearing that because they think they have to because they're a mom and they need to be quote unquote appropriate? And so I notice this stuff so vibrantly now. And even just today and the outfit I'm wearing, like I love my outfit. Like
Love your
it's this
outfit.
little
So
it's a
cute.
jumper. Love it. Really embracing the Lionsgate portal today in Leo season. I'm a Scorpio.
All that
I've
energy.
always loved being bold in my appearance,
Mhm.
but I did feel judged.
Mm.
I did feel like I couldn't be too much. And now I don't give a shit. I'm like, you don't like it. That's something that you have to deal with. That's a story you've been told and you've been holding on to.
Yep.
That's not my story. I love how I look. I am here for it. However, after just having a baby, a lot of women do not feel comfortable in their bodies.
Mhm.
So, one exercise that I love to invite new mamas to do is look at themselves in the mirror naked, completely naked, and give yourself time. Have your partner take the baby or have somebody take the baby for you for at least an hour and really give yourself time because it's going to be vulnerable. It's going to be emotional. It's going to be messy. And that's okay because this is part of reconnecting to who you are and appreciating your body and everything that she's gone through and everything that she's done. It's not easy. It takes work. It's not gonna be like, "Oh, I looked at it one time and now we're good." Like, and it
Check.
takes some time. Like, I still have to stand in the mirror and look at myself sometimes, and
Mhm.
I didn't have anybody share that with me,
Mm.
and I wish they had because there's so much love I wanted to give her that she deserved. And it's really hard even having a very supportive partner that says, "You're beautiful. I love your body. It doesn't matter. Like, you just had our baby." You have to mentally readjust to this new body. And so take time to nurture her and appreciate her and love her and just kind of go all over your body and just touch her, your new breasts that expanded and are deflating and are maybe nourishing your baby or your belly and your womb and your hips that might have expanded and like just all of the things. Go over every part of your body. Take a bath afterwards and just really relax and melt into it.
Mm.
And then as you start to transition into more intimacy, lingerie is a great way to feel confident in yourself. One, just having that sexy lace or silk touch your skin, like the
Mhm.
senses, that sensory input. And lingerie is for you ladies. It's not for your partner, no matter how many
Amen.
stories have been told to you. Like
So true.
it's 100% for you. So that's another
Uh,
little tip.
Girl, you're hitting me in the feels right now. Thank you. Thank you for just being real and vulnerable and speaking to that woman on here that needed to hear that, me being the first one. So it's wild. You mentioned mirror work. And if you guys have listened to my podcast before, I did a whole Feel Good Naked series where I was working on healing my relationship with my body and really going into that. And one of the days was mirror work and I broke down crying. I was like, I thought I was good. Like you said, the check, like I thought I checked off on like feeling good in my skin, but stuff comes out. And so talking about the power behind doing that
Mm.
post baby and just showing yourself love and literally just touching and holding your body and giving yourself that space because I do think, or at least I see as moms, like it's like we're taught to cover up. It's like as soon as you have a baby, we don't talk about that anymore. Like don't share
Yeah.
about the experience and your body. It's gone through so much and it's
Mhm.
so strong and there are so many changes, but like sometimes that's really hard to work through. And so you talking about this is just thank you because more people need to hear it and do it. Such a great exercise, one that I'm actually doing even just with my body changing now with like my belly growing and all of that. I just think it's so important. So I just appreciate you showing other people that love and so that you can keep showing that for yourself. And you also made a really good point because sometimes the guilt can come up. You're like, well, my partner is actually really supportive and does love me and showers me with stuff, but it's something about like you connecting with yourself, like you said, in the mirror. And I don't know if you experience that, but it's just like being able to feel that even deeper than like any other relationship we have, that one with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Because when you can fully connect to yourself, then you're able to more deeply connect with others.
Absolutely.
But you can only connect as much as you can go with yourself. And so I think that's where a lot of challenges come through in relationships because a lot of stuff is surface level. We're afraid to get vulnerable with people again, even our most intimate partner.
Yep.
Vulnerability is because like what if your person doesn't accept you?
What if
They
we're
will. They
rejected?
do. Rejection, right? But when you do that, it's so much more powerful.
It's like the best
Mm.
bond and it just makes you feel, I don't know, like I talk about like the vulnerability of feeling good naked and being naked. Like it goes beyond just our physical body being naked, but being able to share, like you said, post birth, what you're going through. Like, hey, I'm really struggling with too much touch. And some of these things where guilt could come out, coming back to what you said, the 6 week, that six
Yeah.
week mark, man, bullshit. Everyone I've talked to are
Yeah.
like, no. But then saying that or like the wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the husband and just like all of
Yeah.
this bullshit is like, okay, no, everyone's timeline is different. And you're allowed
Mhm.
that and you're allowed to feel that and lean into it. And so the way you're speaking about this just feels so empowering on both ends because it's only making you stronger and your relationship stronger. Do you feel like taking time to reclaim your body and feel more confident and find ways to express yourself? How do you feel like that impacted your relationship with your partner or just your family in general,
Mm.
like the four of y'all?
Oh my gosh, it's made all the difference because I hear so much women's, talk about how they lose themselves
Yeah.
being a mom. They're like, I don't even know who I am outside of being a mom. And you have to. And so our first priority is nurturing ourselves. Second priority is nurturing a relationship. Third priority is nurturing your kids. And I know that ruffles some feathers
It's usually
sometimes.
flipped for a lot of people.
They think children come first and then maybe myself and then maybe the relationship or relationship then self. But what happens is you get completely tapped out and then you don't have enough to give to the other two. And a lot of times it is the relationship that ends up being put on the back burner because you always think like, we're here. Like, of course, we're going to always be in this together. But then you start turning into roommates and
Yeah.
business partners, business of the household, right? And so when you take care of yourself, make yourself that priority, and then really nurture your relationship, your children get to see what a healthy relationship
Mhm.
looks like. How mom is happy and vibrant and just ready to embrace all the things because she's taking care of herself first. They get to see how mom and dad or parents are a team and they come together to work on problems or challenges or whatever, and they have
Yeah.
fun too. They get amazing benefits from witnessing that. And that took me a while to learn. I was a workaholic and I was a
Same.
mom and I was still trying to do all the things around the house and I had guilt all the time.
Mm,
And I had to let it go. Whatever you're focused on is gonna take most of it's gonna be priority. It is not a balance, it is a harmony. So something's always gonna give when you're focusing on something, and you just have to figure out what you're okay with not giving as much attention to.
mhm.
My relationship with my kids is not one of those. And so as long as those are both at the forefront, and then I can fit other things in there.
Yeah. Ugh.
So
Yes, this is so it's wild as you're speaking, it's like the faces of a lot of my clients, my moms who we've had these conversations with. I'm just like, I can't wait to share this episode with them because it's so important to recognize that it's not selfish and it's not only not selfish, but it's super beneficial. I mean, there have been studies like you guys can look up the benefits of when the mom is prioritizing themselves and their health, how much it helps when you're prioritizing that relationship, how good of
Mm.
an example that is. Then making each other a priority, how that's just so important. So I'm so glad you spoke on this. I'm going to ask you one more like dig-in question before we get into other stuff, but you were talking about this roommate phase, which is a phrase. I'm all up on the pregnant TikTok now. So it's a phrase that's like all the time people talk about it. And I will say that it's almost normalized. So then my thoughts are like, okay, is that just something that we're just supposed to accept post-baby? And then it's just like, we just have to go through this phase. Is it something we can actually talk through work? Like in your experience, because now you've had a second go around with your second child. What was that like? Were you able to find more of a harmony with that? Or I just love your take on the roommate phase.
We actually kind of just shared this first year postpartum timeline of what majority of couples experience. You know, like 0 to 6 weeks. 6 weeks, it's like this blissful stage. You have this new tiny human. You're all excited, but you're tired, but you guys are coming at this together and you're figuring it out. And then there's a 3 to 6 months range. And so we have a whole thing on that. But what happens is about the 6 to 9 month stage is where we see the disconnect start to happen a lot. And that can look like the mom's taking on a majority of the roles. There's a disconnect because really the dad doesn't have a lot of quote unquote bonding that he can do with the baby until about that first year. And I see moms get a little resentful of that. They're like, he's not bonding with the baby. He's not doing these things. And it's like, biologically, he's not meant to at this point because we are still biologically like, he's the caretaker. You know, like that's what our bodies know. Logically, we know it's different. They're not meant to bond with the baby. Yes, they can help take care of the baby. So the dad starts to, we didn't talk about this. Dads can go through postpartum depression. They're feeling lonely and kind of cast aside because I know this is going to sound weird, but there's now somebody else competing for your affection.
That's real.
And it doesn't matter that it means it's your baby. And yes, of course, but they're still like, what about me? And so when that's not getting nurtured and that relationship is taking precedent, then we see that disconnect. We see the resentment. And then that's when you become the roommate phase. And if that is not resolved after that 1 year mark, that's when we see a lot of the relationships kind of start to decline. And eventually either there is divorce or they stay together for the kids till after they graduate and then they part ways. And I wholeheartedly believe that helping couples understand this phase after having a baby will help decline divorces. Because we give them common language and understanding. We give them a foundation to communicate and help them understand each other's sexual love languages, not just the 5 love languages, but how they, but like, how do they talk when it comes to sex? And so we just kind of help support them in this phase, and then they can lean on that for however many pregnancies they have after that, So
you are literally changing lives. You're changing families and marriages. And no wonder your husband was like, let's do this together, because it's just the passion is there. And so I'm so excited for you guys to continue to just like grow in that together. I just think it's it's going to be amazing. And I'm just glad that you were open to sharing and talking about a lot of these topics that I think just get, I don't know, they just get dismissed because it's like, oh, well, you should just be happy because you have a supportive partner. You should just be happy because, you have a healthy baby. And so that's the guilt that like I've come up with sometimes is like, should I feel, even just with my pregnancy, it was like the guilt around, well, I was miserable and I like wanted to complain and I wanted to be upset. But then I'm like, am I allowed to be upset? Because there are other people out there trying to get pregnant and I got pregnant easily. And, so it's just so hard. There's like this constant battle within ourselves. And so I'm allowing myself space to hold both. And it sounds like you've done the same and you've been able to do that and hold space for each other too. So instead of your husband getting offended, if you're like, okay, I don't want you to touch me, actually talking through, well, why? What can we do to help support that? So I'm just like, taken all the notes. I hope you guys are listening to this episode, but also just your podcast in general has so much gold to it with the two of you together. I want to shift into some fun stuff. The rapid fire questions are really just like fun, random questions. Whatever comes up first, you just say them and you don't have to hold back. Don't think too hard on them. Are you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. What is y'all's, and I mix them up sometimes, what is y'all's favorite random date night activity that you guys either have done or that you always do? It's like a go-to always.
Mm. We're pretty typical. It's usually dinner. Yeah, we just go to dinner somewhere. We try to go to new places, though. We try to pick a
Switch
new
up.
restaurant that we've heard, but usually it's a restaurant. Yeah.
I like it. The new place. Awesome. Any current Netflix binge or like any streaming?
Yeah, we're on a Cobra Kai kick right now.
Okay. Don't like just stay with Cobra Kai. Like there are parts where you're like, do I want to keep watching that? Yes, just watch it
Yes.
all. We watched it
Okay.
all too last year. That's so funny. I love that. What is your favorite dessert?
Anything chocolate.
Chocolate for sure. Awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
tiramisu, but yeah, chocolate.
What was y'all's first dance song?
Oh, it was Keith Urban's "Only You Can Love Me This Way."
Oh, that's a good one. I grew up on Keith Urban. And then finally, I have to know, like, what was your, well, I have two more. What was your AIM screen name growing up?
Oh, I'm trying to I think I've had 2, but the one
Couple.
that's coming to mind, it was like Wrestling Chick '05 because I was a wrestling manager. So
Wait, how long were you manager? Give me a timeline here. Were you like manager
yeah,
through
I
middle school,
started
high school?
I started sophomore year of high school, and then I actually got like a small scholarship, like a book scholarship to go to college, and that's where Mark and I met. He was a wrestler, I was a wrestling manager, so
Oh my God, they need to make a movie about you guys. Too cute. I love that. I knew you were a badass, but that's the little beginning, the little origin story for you there. And then finally, this podcast is called Confidently Uncomfortable, all about, leaning into your discomfort in order to grow in your confidence. So what is one thing that you can talk about individually or even as a couple that you're working towards right now that is a little uncomfortable, but you're really excited about because you know it's going to help you grow?
Mm. Yeah, I'm getting a little emotional thinking about it because this has been what I've been working on this year is showing up fully as my most authentic self because I never felt safe to do so. I had so many stories told to me. And so I did my first plant medicine experience in March, and it helped to release a lot of those
Mm.
stories and that weight. And so just showing up fully as myself, not second guessing what somebody might think or what that looks like online or anything like that, because I know that my story will help somebody. And if I don't show up fully, then I'm doing those people a disservice.
Oh, I'm getting chills from that. We have some moms coming on as a guest, and they're going to talk about their plant experience too. So they
Yeah.
talk all about mushrooms and all the fun things. So
Oh, I love it.
with showing up fully as yourself, I'm just like, you just even the time that we spent today talking, your story is so powerful and it is already changing lives and it's only going to do that more. And so I don't ever want you to feel like you have to hide parts of yourself because it's just the more that I see from you, the more that I'm like, oh my God, like we need this in this world. We need you in this world. So thank you. Thank you
Thank
so, so much for being here today. Thank you for being so open and honest and real. And I'm just obsessed with everything that you were sharing, your whole experience. I'm going to be following you a lot just because like
you.
you're a few years ahead of me with mom life. So definitely going to be keeping up with that. But other people I know are going to want to stay in touch with you. So where can they do that? What are the places that you're hanging out? Is there any way that they could work with you? What way would that be?
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for all of that. I loved this conversation today. So thank you.
Same.
You can find me on Instagram. It's Brianna, Brianna, Carey, Carey. There's underscores in between each.
I got you in the show notes too.
Yeah. Intimacyevolution.com. We'll have all of the ways that you can work with us, our group programs that we do that my husband and I are both launching for the fall. I like to do mine's fun. I call it a book club, but it's women's group coaching, but we also read a book. So it's fun.
Oh my God, I've been looking for a book club. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. So y'all make sure you go listen to the podcast, get to know both of them. I appreciate you being here today, sharing a part of your heart. And I just, so looking forward to everything that you guys are continuing to do together. I appreciate you, Bri.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.